Okay, so here's our Chapter 7 video. We're talking about developing and managing offerings. So apparently this is hard because we do see that a lot of businesses fail. So some of the reasons that businesses fail is not enough research. And this is probably the biggest one. People don't know enough going in about the market, about their customers. We've been saying all along the key to success is understanding what your customers want, what they value, and then providing it. Maybe it's not doing enough financial research. Maybe you haven't done a financial plan there, or enough product research to look at the long term. So failure to do your homework up front is the number one reason why products fail. Sometimes it's not enough planning. Testing it out first and that kind of thing, or really even projecting how long it's going to take to catch on. So sometimes people underestimate how long it'll take and they don't give themselves enough time. Sometimes it's a lack of awareness. They develop a great product, they just don't make people aware of it. Sometimes it's value or even just the perception of value. So you might come up with something really unique, but if the features of this that set it apart aren't things that people value, then it's still not going to succeed. And sometimes it's just a matter of timing. It might be the right product, but just not the right time. So those are some of the big reasons. And again, if we can, some things you can avoid, but some things you can. So everything, even the timing, any of these really, if we plan it out, can be avoided. So these are the 7 steps of developing a new offering. And a new offering is sometimes too can just be a modification of an old offering. So we'll still call that new. So we're going to talk about each of these steps as we go. And you can see there's an awful lot before we actually get to launching that product, or at least there should be. And the more steps we use here, the greater the chance that we'll succeed. So idea generation, it can be external. So we can talk to customers, we can talk to suppliers. It can be internal. Some companies are really, really big on pushing, like 3M, for example, is really, they require all their managers to devote a certain amount of time to developing new products and that kind of thing. So these ideas can be coming from internal and external. Customers are a great source, and suppliers, seeing what other people are doing, seeing what your competitors are doing. But your employees, especially like your sales staff, they're the ones out there talking to the customers, and they can tell you why they lost sales, what your competitors have that you don't, and that kind of stuff. So customers tell you what they want. Sales, internal, that says internal, not infernal, will tell you what people want, and that's some of the best ideas for generation. And again, like in an entrepreneurial thing, they'll just generate as many ideas as possible, knowing that they're not all going to take off. Line extension we did in the last chapter, but that's again when a company comes out with another model based on the same thing as the other one, and so that we'll still call that kind of a new product. And so we have that again, that might be coming out of your sales force saying, well, if we could just modify it this way, I wouldn't be able to make more sales. The next step then is the idea screening. So once we've generated all these ideas, then we kind of have to screen them out. So this is going through all those ideas to spot the good ones and drop the poor ones, so we don't devote any more time and resource to the poor ones. Some questions you might ask in here are, does it add value to the customer? Does it satisfy some sort of market need that's out there? Can we get it to market in a timely manner? Especially if timing is an issue, but we don't want our window of opportunity to be closed by the time we get there. How many do I think I can sell? What price can I sell it? Can we manufacture that within that budget? Can we manufacture it in a way that the customers are willing to pay for it? Are we going to have after sales service, and do we have the resources for that? And really, does it fit into our overall mission statement? Does it fit into our overall thing? So that's a quick way to kind of screen things out. And then once you've made a first pass through like that, then you get into some of these things. Like concept testing is when you're really just testing an idea. You haven't made a product yet. You're taking this concept to focus groups and saying, do you think this is something that would appeal to you? It will help you see what features people value, what people they don't understand. And this could be important with a highly technical thing. Do they understand the difference? And then we look, is it feasible? Do I have the current resources to produce this or to get it? Is it financially feasible? And then the risk here. What's the risk if I do it? What's the risk if I don't do it? So those are all some things to consider. Then we get to the next step, and so once the idea has passed through this, I've got some more. Then I have to get a little more specific here. So this is the specific features of this product will be based on the concept testing. So what our customers told us in the concept testing that they want and value. Told us that they want and value. So that's what we want to build in here. We have to consider price and value. Again, there's no sense putting features on that people aren't willing to pay for, because that would drive up our costs, but we really can't pass that on in forms of revenue, because people only pay for what they value. So quality function deployment is a process where they start with the customer's desired benefits and then kind of build back into it that derives those. The other way you can do it sometimes is they say, here's the maximum price based on our testing and our focus groups that customers are willing to pay, and then you kind of back into that. You build the feature. So it might mean I was planning to use really let's say the kind of production or the features that way. I was planning to use this really expensive fabric, but it seems like people don't really value that, so I'm going to cut that so I can back it into the price that they want. Then we actually get to the development in here. So in the product development, we are finally going to actually make a physical product for the first time, develop a prototype. This is the first time we've actually had a physical product. Up until now, it's just been ideas and maybe sketches and descriptions and that kind of thing. So now this is where I can really look at the manufacturing process and see, is it feasible to make it the way I want? Because sometimes the planning and the actual execution of it are a little bit different. Then once I've got a prototype and I've developed some, I want to test market. So there's a couple different ways to test market so I want realistic setting. Alpha testing is in a lab, and beta testing are with actual customers, and they're kind of real world things. Beta testing can be expensive, and the other thing is, once you're beta testing, it's out there for other people to see. So your competitors, for example, might be aware of it. Was when it's alpha testing, it's a little bit more secure still. So sometimes people avoid beta testing because it's expensive, and sometimes because they're still trying to keep it secret. They don't want anybody to see the designs yet and that kind of thing. Then when we launch it, that's actually putting it out there in the market after the testing. So a rolling launch, I might, there's a couple ways you could do a rolling launch. You could launch it in big cities first and then roll it out to smaller markets. I might test market it where I just, like McDonald's would do this often. I think with new food, they would just offer it in a couple markets first and see how it goes there, and then if it goes well, so these kind of allow you to start small, see how it's going, make some changes, and then expand out to additional markets. Or the rolling launch might be I start geographically on the west and roll east or something like that. But a lot of times that'll be like in major market areas, and then it'll roll out to smaller areas. Or you could just launch it all at once. It could be either one. Then the other important thing that we don't forget is the evaluation of that. At the beginning, we should have set some goals. This is how many I want to sell within this much, or this is how much money I make. So then we have to constantly go back and look at that. Ask people what they think about it. And really here, this is, I'm constantly then modifying the product by adding features or taking features off that people didn't value and then changing. So really what we're talking about here is changes to any of the 4 P's that we talked about. So product, so it might be physical changes to the product, place where I sell it, price, or even just how I promote it. So any of those changes will come back in the evaluation, and we'll visit that. So the other part of this chapter that I'd like to talk about is the product life cycle. So most products will go through these stages from the time they're introduced to the end of that product. And this is a really helpful tool for marketers because there's different marketing requirements at different stages. Not all products go through all this, and the length really can vary. So it kind of, here's a little graph what it looks like. And so you can see the yellow line are the sales. Here's your 4 stages: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. And my sales really start to go up here in the growth, but my profit's not up yet. And we'll kind of talk about why these are. And then sales, you can see my profits peak here, but my sales peak here. And we'll kind of talk about some of the reasons for that. But really here, even if you're making some sales, you've got no profit because you're investing really a lot of money in here. And then you're growing, but as you grow, then you get additional competition in there. So your sales might be higher, but you probably have to drop your price in order to keep your sales up, and so that's why your profits actually start to go down. And by the time I start losing money again, that's when I would probably want to drop this product. Again, this is when they don't all look like this, and it's not all the length of time's not even, and not everybody goes through this, but they are going to vary for different types of products. Some products never get past the intro stage, right? Because it just doesn't really take off. Other products stay in different products longer. Computers have and tech things generally have a very short cycle. They go through all 4 stages fairly quickly, whereas other things, jewelry, kitchen products, even cars or something, have a longer phase. Things that are fads or styles go much quicker. The marketing changes throughout here, and then there can be global differences. So let's talk about these 4 phases. The introduction phase is the first one here. Again, the marketing costs are very high, as I try to make people aware of this. So marketing costs, very high. So I've invested a lot of money into this, and I'm sinking a lot of money into marketing, but I'm not selling that much. I might have R&D costs that I'm still trying to absorb, and probably a lot of marketing. Distribution. At this point, I'm not going to try and distribute everywhere. I'm going to distribute to those early adopters. We talked about the different types of consumers, and these guys are always the first one to have everything, right? So I'm distributing really to those early adopters. I'm hoping that they will pick up and catch on. There's really two basic price strategies you could have here. You can have price skimming, which is when I price it high at the beginning. And the idea is I know once my competitors reach this market, I'm going to have to lower my price. So I price it high at the beginning to grab as much profit as I can. Whereas price penetration is the opposite. I price it low at first, at the beginning of the product, because I'm trying to sell as many as I can and grab as much market share as I can before the competitors get here. So it's not like there's one right way. It really varies with the product and the market and how much competition, how much time you think you have. So, but those are the 2 common strategies you see at the beginning. The growth phase is it's now kind of accepted by the market. People know what it is. This could be we could think about 3D TVs. First you have to make people aware of it. That's the intro phase. Now it's been accepted by the market, and so we're entering that that growth phase. So we have rapidly increasing sales, well, hopefully they're rapidly, but sales are definitely going up as people are more aware of it, and so we can start to make a profit here, hopefully. We will expand the distribution. Hopefully increasing production. Your promotion efforts are going to, your competition is going to start to come in here. So you want to focus on your features and benefits. So I'm not just trying to make people aware, but now I'm convincing them why mine is better, because we now have competition. So in the intro phase, my promo was really just on, hey, let me make you aware of this. And I was the only one. Now I've got competition. So now I have to say, here's why mine is better than the other guys. So that's kind of what your promotional message will focus on. Again, I'm expanding my distribution, which could mean my costs go up. The price generally will stay the same through here. Price probably the same. But especially if I was skimming, I may have to, maybe if I was using the price skimming policy where I price it really high at first, I may have to decrease the price because of competition. And so my profit should start to go up with this one. Hopefully, again, if I have to cut my price, then that's going to affect my profit there. Then we reach the maturity phase, and so I might still be growing, but the growth level's off. So if I'm still growing, it's growing small. I mean, it's still very high sales, but the growth will kind of level off here in terms of sales. Demand will probably, the demand for your product will probably start to go, will start to go down. Either people already have it or there's more competition. I probably will have a lot of repeat customers. So maybe more repeat customers, less new customers. I'm probably not attracting so many new people anymore. You really want to try and make this phase last as long as possible. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the last phase, and then I'm going to come back to how we can kind of make this phase. Oops, not phase. Make this phase last as long as possible. There are some products that have been in this maturity phase for a really, really, really long time. So think, without them really having to do too much. So think like Crayola crayons. They haven't really had to change that product. It's been the same forever. Campbell's tomato soup. All right, they've been in that maturity phase for a really long time, and just the growth leveled off, but it's still high and it stayed there for a long time. So the last phase is the decline phase, and this is where sales are actually decreasing, not just increasing at a slower rate or leveling off, but sales are decreasing. It might become obsolete from technology. So with tech products, you see this a lot. Something new has come out, now it's just completely obsolete. I don't know, film cameras might be an example of that one. Everybody has digital now. So if it's a fad, it reaches this stage really quickly. Quick to the decline stage. It goes through all 4 stages really quickly. Generally, you kind of want to harvest. You're not going to continue to put money into this. You're going to get what benefits you can off of some off of some loyal fans, but you're not going to put money into it. So you're not going to be promoting. Your distribution's going to start going back. But once you start to hit this, you might modify the product to try to kind of send you back to the maturity phase there. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can modify this product to avoid this decline stage in here. We can extend the life cycle or extend that maturity phase and prevent that in a couple different ways. We can enter new markets. And so maybe we might be entering global markets or just new geographic markets, or it might be even demographic markets. So convenience stores were originally very geared towards men, and like for travelers, truck drivers, that kind of stuff. And then they started promoting them much more towards women. And so they did change the product. They changed about what they offer, but really trying to hit new markets or new demographic groups or new geographic groups. You could modify, that kind of goes with this one too, so you could modify the target market. So I'm not just targeting this specific group, I'm opening that up. You could add new features and benefits. You could take some features and benefits off. Or you might be modifying the marketing strategy, how you're promoting it, where you're promoting it, to reach new people. And so these would kind of all go along together. The things that you might be modifying, it might be the packaging, and it might communicate the benefits better, or it might grab their attention more, or something like that. So it could be that. It could be the quality of the product, so new features or new ways to use it. Another good one on here, not even new feet, but the new markets. Think about baking soda. They did a great job. It was just for baking, and then they came up with all the other ways you could modify it. You use the baking soda, and they put it right on the box. So that would be here, in the packaging. They were talking about all the different ways you can use baking soda. You can put it in the fridge, and you can put it in the shoes, or I don't know, the dryer, or whatever, to increase the use and make that last a little bit longer. The quantity, you can try and get people to use more, and that would work with the baking soda too. So buy two, one for baking and one for in the fridge. So that you can see those types of things. All those can kind of extend that maturity phase. And I talked about Crayola now, and like the Campbell soup really didn't do any of these. It's the same packaging pretty much. They really haven't changed. They did come up with some things like the low sodium one, so that would be a little bit of that. The quantity, it's like I said, it's still the same packaging, but if you look at Crayola, they did make some changes. Some of them still has that same 64 box with the little sharpener in it, but they certainly have come up with a ton of new products into the paints and all those types of things, and as opposed to crayons. But they still have that basic crayon, and the sales of that basic crayon are probably still very strong for them. And then going out to new markets. So you can do global markets. Maybe you can sell online instead of just in person. Or maybe if you've always been online, you can open physical stores. LL Bean did that. They were just catalog for and ever and ever and ever. And then they eventually went to new markets through opening physical stores beyond just that one they had in Maine. And or substitute products. So maybe you have a high-end one and you offer a lower-end one to kind of compete with that. So new markets, like hotels, do that all the time. So I think that's about it for Chapter 7. Let me know if you have any questions.